Winter seems to have a way of slowing you down, and I'm grateful for that. I felt like we spent a large majority of this year running, and the fact that we have a little bit of time to slow down and breathe is really nice. I'm grateful for the time that I'm able to turn inward now that it's winter and now that it's so chilly outside and there's no garden to tend, there's a lot less animal chores to do and things to maintain. And part of that turning inward is just noticing all of the things that have accumulated over the summer that need to be cleaned up and reorganized and just had some tender love and care given to it. Corners that need to be cleaned, things that need to be dusted, dirt that needs to be removed, and things that just need to be put back in their proper place. So in today's video, I thought it would be fun to take you along and take you through a list that I am slowly working through, trying to get my home completely reorganized and completely cleaned at the starting of the new year, just to start with a blank slate, start with things organized and neat and tidy again. And so I wanted to take you along during this process, and maybe it'll give you some ideas. Maybe you'll want to write out this exact list or make something similar for your own home. So let's dive in. Our master bedroom was getting really bad. My drawers were totally unorganized. My husband's drawers had gotten really unorganized. Our books were unorganized. So many things were just a mess. And so I started up in our master bedroom, and it took me about half a day. And I went through and I reorganized all my husband's clothes. I went through and cleaned out all of my clothes along with reorganizing all of my clothes. And then my goal was to clean out every single drawer, every single basket, every single bin in the entire room. And I was able to get all that done. Everything was put back in its correct place. I got rid of anything that we no longer used or that was broken, and I'm really enjoying the look of the master bedroom now. It's all perfectly organized and perfectly back where it was when we first moved in, and that makes me really happy. Also, I wanted to mention that we live in about an 800 square foot home, and so it's really, really small. And so, of course, if your house is bigger or you have a lot of kids or a lot of people living with you, then of course this process might take a lot longer than this room, which took half a day. Also, I wanted to mention with this list that I wrote, I didn't include the things that I'm already doing all the time, like sweeping and mopping. This is mainly more detailed stuff that I don't often get to. So the next room that I decided to move to, since we were working in bedrooms, was my daughter Carrie's room. And I keep all of my dress clothes in Carrie's closet because our bedroom doesn't actually have an official closet. And so for Carrie's room, I went through all of her clothes, got rid of anything that was too small, anything too stained. I went through and cleaned out all of her toys, packed away anything that she's kind of outgrown, doesn't use anymore. Then I went through and cleaned out my clothes and cleaned out all the clothes that I no longer wear and packed away the things that I like but I just don't wear or on maternity. I also organized my little pantry that I have in this bedroom, as well as moving everything to thoroughly sweep and mop and cleaning out, once again, every drawer and every cupboard and every basket and every single thing in her room so that it's totally reorganized and just gone through and touched to make sure that it's all things that I want to keep. The biggest room that I've been looking at throughout the entire year thinking it needs a thorough scrub down is our kitchen. And so I started out with a junk drawer, but as you can see, there were tons of different cupboards full of stuff that just didn't belong there, that was out of place, that needed to be gotten rid of. And so I started with the junk drawer. The next thing that I did was that I wanted to go through and label all my jars and print the old plastic containers into a more pretty glass jar and label it, and so it would just fit a lot more in a small amount of space. And so that was the next thing that I did. Okay, the next thing that I thought really necessary was to give my microwave a thorough scrubbing. I haven't cleaned it super well in a long time, and it had just gotten really, really disgusting. So I did that, and then I went through and I vacuumed out, and then I wiped out all of my drawers and all of my cupboards because they had just accumulated a lot of dust and a lot of crumbs, and honestly, I was kind of surprised with how dirty they were. The next thing that I did was set my stove on an automatic clean setting, and it took 4 hours, but wow, it actually works, which is really, really neat. Of course, while I had things out, I did reorganize everything and make sure everything was put back in the correct spot. And then I went through and I scrubbed down all the counters really well. And a little tip for you, if you have anything hardened onto your counter, use a jar ring, the metal ring, and you can scrape it across any surface basically, and it will remove whatever has hardened onto your countertop. It works really well. Of course, while I did the counters, I also wiped down anything that was sitting on the counters and got it all really clean. The next thing that I did was to wipe down all the kitchen walls and cabinets, and I've been wanting to do the walls for a long time. They have gotten pretty disgusting, and I was really happy to get them wiped down again. Lastly, and I did have these things on my list but didn't end up doing them just because I have done them really recently, but I had to clean out the fridge, clean out the freezer, and bleach the sink. And my kitchen is totally 100% re-cleaned and reorganized and looking very beautiful, and it makes me very happy. Okay, it is now the next day. I dedicated a day to each room, which seemed to work really, really well. And I decided to work on the living room next. The first thing that I wanted to do was to put the TV upstairs rather than being the focal point in the living room, because although it's super, super nice to have a TV, we only use it a couple times a year, really. We only watch a couple movies a year, probably. A big thing that I like to do a couple times of the year at least is to move all the furniture and sweep underneath it. And I am always shocked with the amount of toys and garbage and clutter and junk that collects under furniture and just lives under there. It like multiplies, it like breeds under there. And so I wanted to do that today, just to kind of give everything a fresh start for the new year. So after I remove all the furniture, I like to wipe everything down. And you know, they always say, wipe top to bottom, clean top to bottom. And I do think that's really smart, because so often there is clusters of dust and piles of dirt that end up falling on the floor and ruining your clean floor if you've just cleaned it, which I have done many times in the past. I also like to go through and vacuum out my sofas. I do this much more than once a year just because there's crumbs, and Carrie sometimes will munch on something on these couches. So finally, after the dusting and the cleaning of the walls and the purging of the furniture, I like to actually sweep. And this is quite satisfying because, as you can see, the piles get very large very quickly. It's quite shocking. And then, of course, I like to mop under all the various pieces of furniture to be sure that everything is totally clean before I put them back. And, of course, having a toddler, this involves a lot of picking up of toys that have been re-put out during the process. Next, of course, we need to redecorate the piano for the, fourth or fifth time this year? But I really like this decor, and I love the way that this turned out. I really like adding the wood elements to the living room. It's really fun. I did end up vacuuming, and yes, I vacuum all the time. I know I mentioned at the starting of this video that I was only going to do things in this video that I don't typically do on a regular cleaning routine. I do typically vacuum on a regular cleaning routine, but I just had to get this shot. Why not? The last two things that desperately needed to be done were cleaning underneath the stove and scrubbing down the rocks. It does get pretty neglected. And then cleaning the glass on the stove. And I do this so rarely because it gets black almost immediately. But for the time it lasts, it is really beautiful. And I think my husband really likes when the glass is clean on the stove. And so I did it for him today. Also, if you enjoy homemaking routine videos, then I will link one down below that is my weekly homemaking cleaning routine, and it has some really good tips in there, and it kind of shows the whole list. I didn't end up moving on to the bathroom because I keep my bathroom pretty clean, and there wasn't really a whole lot extra to do. So thank you so much for watching. Happy homemaking, and I'll see you next week in my next video. Bye!